welcome to RK Stumbling Bear. I'm Rachel, the R and the RK. Oh, that was bad. Okay, anyway, we'll go back to really what I want to talk about. I've seen other people on BookTube reading different books for different challenges, and I thought, hey, that could be a lot of fun. That could be interesting. I know Goodreads has some really shitty mechanics, but also has some mechanics that I kind of like. And one of them is their community lists. So these are lists that are created by community members and can be voted on by anybody in the community. And I was looking for some fun space opera reads and found one of their lists, which is called Best Space Opera of the 21st Century, and I will leave a link down below. And so I thought it would be fun to read some books on this list. Some of the rules for this list are only books that have received at least 1,000 ratings and then have been shelved at least 10 times as space opera. And the definition of space opera that they have used is space opera, a subgenre of science fiction, is romantic adventure set in space and told on a grand scale. To kind of help those who wanted to add books to the list, this was what they considered space opera. So I'm going to do 3 different reading videos for this list. First, the top 10, just straight top 10. Second, the top 10 written by women. And the third, the top 10 written by a person of color or somebody who is not of European descent. And again, that is author. So this is just kind of a general introduction that I expect to probably have on all 3 of the videos. And then in a bit, I'll tell you which list I'm actually working on. Today is the 22nd of November that I am working off of these lists. So things do change. Since I have been thinking about doing this video, the top 10 list doesn't change as much, but the female author list and then the people of color author list have changed, like the order of books, because it is dependent on how people in the community rate them. So after watching this video, if you want to go through and you want to vote for your favorite books or add books, that will change the makeup of the list, but that would be fun. It'd be fun to see different opinions for different people. So for the top 10 best space opera of the 21st century, the top 10 listed are: number 1 is Leviathan Winks, which I have not read. Hey everyone, just checking in. Today is the 20th of December, and I have finished Leviathan Winks by James S.A. Corey. And I have a nice sun line, down the middle. This is the book that inspired the Expanse TV show. And I had actually tried watching the TV show before reading this book, and I just found it very cheesy and had some points that I really I couldn't immerse myself in it. But I have a lot of experience being in my 30s with adaptations not always being true to the book. So I knew I still was going to read the book. I really did like this book. I actually gave it 4 stars. It is by no means perfect, and there were still some elements of it that knocked me out and made it where it was not something I could see as like a plausible actually happening in the future. But it is a solid space opera, and I love my space opera. One of the things I really love about this book are the characters. That you can understand how they're feeling, why they do the things that they do. I mean, you get the characters. Now, James S.A. Corey did push their characters a little bit. They do have archetypes. So you have one that's a morally gray character, and you have one that is staunch. This is how I am, without too much blending in between. I mean, those are the 2 kind of main viewpoints that we have here. I feel that the secondary characters, though, are very well developed, and they help balance out the starkness of the two main points of view. So that was great. But yeah, so I enjoyed this. Again, gave it 4 stars. I'm going to continue with this series, and we'll see where it goes from there. Number 2 is Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Again, I have not read it. Hi, today is the 26th of December, and yesterday, on the 25th of December, I finished Old Man's War by John Scalzi. And I needed some time to kind of sit and think about how I thought about this book. On this copy, there's a quote that kind of compares him to Robert Heinlein. And now, I really enjoy Robert Heinlein's writing. My favorite book is Space Cadet. And so seeing a quote like that really kind of set the tone for me, while I didn't know what the book was about because I hadn't read the synopsis beforehand. Kind of what I was expecting from that quote was character-driven, but not a lot of plot. And that is what I got. I love the character interactions. Something that I think John Scalzi does really well is the use of dialogue to convey information, but in a natural sense. So it's not like you're just getting info dumped on. These are what the characters actually would be talking about. It makes sense. And I really enjoyed that. I liked his use of dialogue a lot. So not really much to say on this one. John Perry, on his 75th birthday, enlists in the Colonial Defense Force. He's 75. I think I said that already. I might not have. Anyway, yes, therefore old man. Nobody on Earth really knows what the Colonial Defense Forces do. There's not a lot of communication. There's not a lot of communication off Earth with the colonies. And so he goes out and he discovers, and I don't want to spoil anything, and I gave this 4 stars. Number 3 is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I have read this one before this list, and it was something I rated before Cop Pile, and I rated it a number 5, which meant that I really love it, I wanted to be part of my collection, and I want to reread it. So in Ancillary Justice, we follow Breck, who is an AI in this universe. There's an AI with a ship, and then each level of the ship will have an AI. And so Breck is an AI for 3rd level, if I'm remembering it right. It's been a while since I've read this book. Yeah, so in the first book, it's a revenge story. Breck is on her way to kill the supreme leader of the Radic Empire. Not sure if I said that right. We're moving on. Because this head of empire is what caused the destruction of her ship. And she was one of the fortunate ones to get out of the ship. And so she's now bent on revenge. And this empress has multiple selves. Just like a ship's AI can have multiple selves, this empress does as well. And like I said, I really enjoyed this story concept. I like Breck. I think she's a fun character. I know I'm saying she because in my mind she's a she. And also because all the pronouns for everyone in this civilization is she. They do talk about in other civilizations they don't. They'll go back and forth. So I am going to use she because that is the pronoun of her empire. So that concept of having a single gender for a whole society, I found interesting. They also had some society things with gloves, wearing them, not wearing them, that I found very interesting as well. But mostly, I just like the space elements and the adventure of it. Ranked number 4 is Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. I have not read it. Welcome back. It is the 24th of September. Yes, there has been a gap in what I've been reading, or reading from this list anyway. And I have finished today Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. I tried this actually last winter, and I DNF'd it. And I put it down because it just wasn't jiving with me. And I knew for this list I wanted to give it another shot.
So I got it out, and with the Space Opera September coming up, I was like, all right, let's do this. I'll have that as one of the things. I'll try to put that for one of the prompts. And then the prompts were buddy reads, and somebody said yes, they wanted to buddy read this with me. So I read it. And I would have DNF'd this if I did not have a buddy reader, somebody who was expecting me to have comments on things. Overall, I'm giving this a 3-star, but this is very much a plot-driven book, and I'm more of a character reader, and I didn't like some of the elements. I'm going to put this down because my arm hurts. So I didn't like some of the elements for the writing style, one of them being that the author would say, oh, hey, this character learned this information, but then didn't tell the reader the information. That just killed the intrigue for me. I'm now supposed to believe that a character is going to act differently based off the information, but because I don't know the information, I'm just like, they're acting the same. I don't know. It was very confusing. Also, there was one character perspective that I was just bored by. It wasn't until the very end that I was like, oh, I kind of like this character now. I think my favorite character was Anna Corey. And then I actually liked Volyova, even though she is very much a morally gray character. So for those two, I am curious to find out more of their story, but I'm not quite... I haven't determined if I'm going to try reading further in the series or not. There was enough of this story that it ended up just being okay, but it took a long time to get to the point where it was just okay. On to continuing reading my top 10 space opera list.
Ranked number 5 is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I have not read it. Hi everyone, today is the 1st of January 2021, and I am here to say that I have DNF'd one of the space opera books. It's just not my style. But the book that I ended up DNFing is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. My issues with this is just from the get-go. So my issues from this, just from the get-go, I wasn't able to get into the world building. The concept, like me, this is a book that had been on my radar for a couple years and I had wanted to read. And the concept of people going to prepare Mars so other people can come live was interesting, and then being thwarted and they think they're still preparing for Mars, but no, actually Mars is good to go and they're being oppressed and kept down. Found that premise I found very interesting, and I still find that very interesting. It was just the execution. I'll be honest, I only read the first 3 chapters because my method of reading is I read the first 3 chapters, and if I'm on the fence about a book, then I go read the end and I see, do I want to get to the ending? And the ending just seemed like it was a mirror of the beginning, where somebody tried, or where Darrow tried really, really hard, but he still in the end actually lost. And I'm just like, no, because then there's no growth that has happened for the character. And I mean, it doesn't mean that he has to like win a war, but yeah, I'm just not interested in reading a character who is a whiny bitch. Pardon my language, but he is. And I get it, everyone's like, oh, 16, you're a whiny. Not in a dystopian society. I'm sorry. I will never believe that a character is that whiny in a dystopian society. Just because that's the society you've grown up with, you're not going to be whining about it and be like, oh, life is so hard. No, that is what you're used to. We don't complain about what we're already used to. We take it as a fact. And that's why we have systemic racism. That's why we have the troubles we have now here on this earth, is because we have accepted this is a fact of life. Darrow is whining about everything and then still trying to be like, well, this is just how it is. No, I mean, his wife, Io, I'm not sure how you say her name, she was more interesting, and I think this book would have been better if we'd followed her. Also, the whole concept of that they were married at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I agree with many other people when they've said it was a refrigerator moment. So, yeah, I DNF'd this book. I know that people say that the next books in the series are better and overall the series gets better, but I don't care. I don't want to read it. for me, the story would need a complete reworking. And like I said, another issue I had with it is all of the female put-downs by the males just in the first 3 chapters, just when we're still in the Red Society. And I'm like, I'm over this in dystopian worlds. Why do people think that, it's an okay idea to oppress women? No, I'm over it. This is why I really don't like dystopians in science fiction or fantasy. You walk a very fine line to get me to like a dystopian, and yep, this is not for me at all. So yeah, I didn't like it. Ranked number 6 is The Martian by Andy Weir. I have read this one, and I really do like it. This is a book that has a really faithful screen adaptation as well. So if you've seen the movie, it follows the book pretty closely. There's always going to be some things that are changed, but the main beats of it has not been changed. And this follows, I was about to say Matt Damon, because that's the actor in the movie, but Mark Watney, that is the character in the book. And he is a NASA astronaut and a botanist, and he has woken up to being left on Mars. During a severe storm, his team decided to evacuate, and he got knocked out of the route with them, and his suit read that he had died, so they ended up leaving him behind. And it's how he decides to survive against all odds using science. And so I really enjoy it. And I gave that 5 stars. Ranked number 7 is The Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and I have read this. I actually finished it earlier this year. This book follows the crew of the Wayfarer as they are on their way to a job to bore a wormhole in space for travel. At first I was kind of confused on the makeup of this story because I thought it was going to just be following Rosemary Harper. And then after a couple chapters I realized it's more of an episodic storytelling, whereas each chapter is a little vignette from one of the characters on the ship, and you get their life, kind of their life story, how they think and feel about things as they go on to the small angry planet. It's a style of storytelling that I really enjoy. It reminds me a lot of Robert Heinlein's juvenile stories and how they're more episodic, especially like the Rolling Stones. So I really enjoyed this book, and I gave it 5 stars. So ranked number 8 at this time is Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton. Have not read it. Good morning. Today is the 23rd of October, and I have decided to DNF Pandora's Star. I think I started this reading project last November, so it's been almost a year of me trying to read this book, and I've only gotten as far as to page 229. This is almost an 800-page book in this copy. I like his dialogue between characters, but he overuses the description, and he has too many characters for me. I've completed 8 chapters, and we've only repeated a character once. That seems a little drastic to me. It seems that Hamilton is trying to create an epic science fiction, kind of in the vein of epic fantasies, but it misses for me. That doesn't mean that it's going to miss for everyone, but it's missing for me. Again, I like it when things are happening. I'm more of an action-oriented. I don't mind the description, but I don't need a freaking layout of the asteroid that one of the characters lives in and how they have terraformed it so that they get their beautiful vista as they sit and read their emails or then talk to artificial intelligence. Why? And probably because he's trying to create a big epic, nothing's connecting. So far we've just been introduced to everybody. And that's not my favorite way of reading an epic. I don't mind reading epics, but you need to have a more connection, and then as you introduce characters, you give information about them. You don't go, here's a character, here's all the information, and then later you'll see how they connect down the line. I don't like that style. So I have DNF'd this. I don't know if this is a permanent DNF or maybe in a few years I'll try it again, but at this time I have DNF'd it. Ranked number 9 is Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. Have not read it. So today is the 3rd of October, and last night I finished Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. This is actually a really good second book. it doesn't fall prone to the second book syndrome. This story holds up on its own, and in fact, if you missed the first book, somehow started reading this before reading Leviathan Winks, you would still have a complete story and you can figure out what's going on. You wouldn't have all the information about the proto-molecule. You have enough to be able to read this story without stressing that you completely missed things from the first book. I really enjoyed Bobby and Avasarala. I would like to see more of them in the future, even if they're not a main point of view. Prax, I'm still not sure how I feel about him. He definitely was there to help move things along, and his character was what was needed for this story. I don't need his point of view in the future, though. It's okay if it's like an Easter egg, like, oh, hey, just got off the phone call with Prax or something like that. But he's being sent to go take care of something. I'm good. I don't need him. Something I did not like in this was the whole breakup trope of Holden and Naomi. I understand for their characters that it was a natural progression, but I think that Naomi is being unrealistic to want Holden to stay the same as he was before, especially after everything that has happened to him. But, that comes from someone who lives with someone who has PTSD. War changes people. Stressful circumstances change people. So that was an off note for me. I'll have to see how their relationship progresses. I really enjoyed this, and I have to read the third book for this series anyway, but I am looking forward to reading the third book, and hopefully we'll get to it here soon. I'm very glad that I have finally started reading this series. Like I said, when I talked about Leviathan Winks, the Expanse TV show flopped for me, but the book series is very interesting. Ranked number 10 is Abaddon's Gate by James S.A. Corey, and I have not read it. So today is the 13th of February, and last night I finished Abaddon's Gate by James S.A. Corey. This is the 10th and final book on the list that I've been working on, and overall, I liked it. It was a slow start, especially since it seemed like a lot of groundwork was being built for further books versus telling the story in this book. And there were some characters that I didn't really like, and it took me a while to get into the new POVs. About a fourth of the way in, that's when things started to pick up and start happening, and after that I was hooked. But this one is a slow start, and so far I would say that this is my least favorite out of the series. I am planning to read the next one, though. I think one of the things that I disliked about this book was the whole, we're like in the villain's point of view, and that was so that we could give the villain a redemption arc, but I don't think they pulled it off. I think it would have been fine to have the villain's point of view, but to not try to make it a sympathetic villain. That was, I think, where the authors were missing a step, is they tried to make the villain sympathetic. Sometimes people, there isn't a reason for it. Sometimes people just do awful things. And that was the thing, is they didn't try to make the villain morally gray. It was quite clearly the villain. And I just didn't care for it. But I am intrigued to see how the events of this play out into the next book. These authors are pretty good about doing the setup. And this does continue from where the second book left off. Even with a little bit of a time gap in between, it's relevant to the ending events. And so I think that they have a consistent story going through, or they have a consistent arc going through, but how they decided to tell it, I don't know, wasn't my favorite. And honestly, I wish we could have Naomi's point of view. We have everyone talking about Naomi and what she's doing. I would like her point of view. And that finishes this reading project. Well, that finishes this part of this reading project. To recap, I am working on reading 3 different sets of 10 from the Goodreads Best Space Opera list. This is a list that is voted on by users. So if you use Goodreads, you can go to this list and vote on it, and I'll leave the link down below. And then the next one will be the top 10 written by people of color. And I still have quite a few books on that one to read still. Have you read any of these? Do you agree with many Goodreads users that they should be the top 10 space opera books? Or do you think that something else should be up there? Also, are you going to go vote on this list? Thank you and have a good day.